Why?
Get up, girl.
Why?
It's daytime.
Not daytime, it's up time.
Yeah, it's up time. You've got to brush your teeth.
Why?
Because you have morning breath.
Why?
Why what? No, kids can't have coffee.
Why?
Because coffee is for big people.
Why?
Because little kids can't drink it. It makes you too hyper.
Why make me too hyper? Give me a little bit.
No.
Why? Sound close?
Yeah.
Why?
Because we're going to a sand park and I don't want you to get sand in your butt.
Is that not my butt?
Yeah.
Why? I don't want to get dirty.
Nope.
Why? You're my mommy.
Yeah. We gotta go potty before we go outside, okay?
Why?
Because if not, you're gonna go pee-pee in the car. I'm not driving.
Why?
Because Mama is driving.
Why Mama's driving? Why don't look like Daddy's house?
It's the same color like Daddy's house.
Why?
Because the building is red.
Why building is red?
Because it's made of bricks.
Why made of red?
Because bricks hold up well and they don't fall. We're gonna leave soon, okay?
Why?
Because we've been here for a long time. That's where dogs go poo-poo.
Why?
Because they don't go in the potty.
Why they go to party?
Because they go in the grass.
Why? Hold me.
Oh no, I can't hold you.
Why?
Because you're heavy.
Slow down. Slow down.
Slow down.
Yeah.
No, don't touch that.
Why?
Because it's gonna prick you.
Why?
I don't have your iPad.
Why?
I don't have it either.
Why?
Because it's home. No, you can't play with my camera.
Why?
It's not a toy.
Kids don't play with their mommy's hammer. Why?
We have to take your clothes off.
Why?
Because it's dirty. No, put that away.
Why?
Because it's nap time.
Doubt is a topic that probably doesn't come up in churches nearly enough, if at all in some cases. Like, I know my experience in church growing up, I grew up going to church occasionally, but I never really liked it. And if there were any questions in my head about faith, I definitely would not bring them up because I didn't want to feel stupid, or I just figured that I'd figure it out on my own, or I didn't want anyone to get mad at me, or I didn't want anyone to think that my doubt meant that I didn't care about or love God. But what I found is that because I was so afraid to bring up my doubts and questions, I never did. And instead of figuring them out on my own, I just kind of suppressed them and forgot about them or just discredited them. I decided, well, if it's not intuitive to me, then it must not be true. And my fear of asking questions about my doubts because I feared people thinking I wasn't all in on God was the very thing that led me to not be all in on God. And it was because of this toxic culture that's crept into church and told us that you just listen to the sermon, you believe everything blindly, and you be a good boy or girl. If you have any doubts, you probably weren't listening hard enough, or you must not be a good Christian, or you must not believe or be believing the right things. And when we start to feel that message hit us just over and over again, that we aren't good enough, or we aren't doing something right, or that we should have this faith completely figured out, like, am I dumb or something because I don't have all the answers? Like, because that's how I feel sometimes when I finally get the courage to ask someone and then they just treat me like an idiot. Like, that's toxic, and it's not realistic either. Like, can I just be the first to let you all know I do not have all the answers. Like, I don't, and I never will. Like, if you ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, I'll tell you, I don't know. And then I'll do my best to help us both figure it out. Like, this is a place where doubts and questions are more than welcome. I want this to be a place where we can ask and talk about hard questions openly, because I didn't have that growing up and it hurt my faith. Like, it was really easy for me to think that my questions were a sign that I was drifting away from God, but it took me a long time in a healthy community to help me understand that asking questions was actually a good thing. Like, my questions weren't a sign that I didn't have faith. My questions were the things that helped me deepen my faith. Because seeking answers, they gave me the chance to learn more about God and myself and others in the world. Like, faith isn't about just uncritically listening and accepting what someone tells you. Faith is continuing to search for God in the midst of our questions. Like Zoe asking questions like, why? Like, asking is a healthy sign of curiosity. It's a sign that we want to learn and grow and discover new things, and that's a good thing. Now, I want to do something a little bit different. We're going to hit pause on the video, and so take your phones out. And if you don't have a phone, you can find a leader and we'll make sure that you can participate. But we're going to take a little poll together. And it's all anonymous, so you don't have to worry about that. But we just want you to be honest. Like, I want us all to be able to see where we're at and realize that if you have doubts and questions in your head, you are not the only one. So hit pause, go ahead and go to the link on the screen, and then hit play after we're done talking about it. All right, so on a scale from 1 to 10, I want to ask, how often do you have doubts or questions about God? Or now, how about this? Are you able to share your doubts and questions with anyone? And if so, who? Or if you feel like not, what's preventing you from sharing? You see, if you've ever had a question or a doubt about God, you're not the first. Like we just saw that in the poll, you're not the first or only person to have doubts. And what I want to do today is we're going to look at 2 examples of people doubting or questioning God in the Bible. And yes, the authors of the Bible, they had doubts. But we're going to look at a couple of examples from the book of Psalms and see what we can learn from them. And Psalms is this ancient book of worship and songs to God. So that's why you see so many references to harps and lyres and lutes, which is the instrumental lineup that they were rocking back in the day when these were written. But these songs were opportunities for people to praise God, but they weren't all joyful and happy songs. Like, many of the Psalms were expressions of desperation and heartache and mourning. In fact, some sound pretty hopeless. Psalm 88, it says this, God, you're my last chance of the day. I spend the night on my knees before you. Put me on your salvation agenda. Take notes on the trouble I'm in. I've had my fill of trouble. I've camped on the edge of hell. I'm written off as a lost cause, one more statistic, a hopeless case, abandoned as already dead, one more body in a stack of corpses, and not so much as a gravestone. I'm a black hole in oblivion. You've dropped me into a bottomless pit, sunk me in a pitch black abyss. I'm battered senseless by your rage, relentlessly pounded by your waves of anger. You turned my friends against me, made me horrible to them. I'm caught in a maze and can't find my way out. Blinded by tears of pain and frustration, I call to you, God. All day I call. I wring my hands. I plead for help. Are the dead a live audience for your miracles? Like, do ghosts ever join the choirs that praise you? Does your love make any difference in a graveyard? Is your faithful presence even noticed in the corridors of hell? Are your marvelous wonders ever seen in the dark, your righteous ways noticed in the land of no memory? I'm standing my ground, God, shouting for help at my prayers every morning and on my knees each daybreak. Why, God, do you turn a deaf ear? Why do you make yourself scarce? For as long as I remember, I've been hurting. Like, I've taken the worst you can hand out and I've had it. Your wildfire anger has blazed through my life. I'm bleeding black and blue. You've attacked me fiercely from every side, raining down blows till I'm nearly dead. You made lover and neighbor alike dump me. The only friends I have left is darkness. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but there's some raw honesty in this psalm. Like, the psalmist, he's wondering if God is going to show up or if God has abandoned them. And it doesn't have this happy or hopeful ending. It ends by the psalmist saying that he feels alone and everything feels dark. Like, super uplifting, right? And remember, this is the Bible. It's real and honest. And now this must have been pretty hard to write, but does anyone else kind of find it comforting to read in a weird way? It's almost encouraging to know that God doesn't expect us to always be happy and carefree. Like, he allows us to express our pain honestly, openly, and publicly. Because let's face it, sometimes life is painful, unfair, and overwhelming. And so it makes sense that we might sometimes wonder or even doubt if God will ever come through. Like, this psalm reveals that it's okay to be raw and honest. Like, God can handle our anger and disappointment, frustration, and even our doubt. Like, we don't need to hold back with God. And you don't need to hold back from me or your leaders. Like, real life and faith, it isn't always rated PG. And I want to read another psalm, Psalm 22, which says this, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from my cries of anguish? My God, I cry out by day, but you don't answer by night. But I find no rest. That you are enthroned as the Holy One. You're the one Israel praises. In your In you, our ancestors put their trust. They trusted and you delivered them. To you, they cried out and they were saved. In you, they trusted and were not put to shame. But I am a worm and not a man, scorned by everyone, despised by the people. Like all who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads. Like, he trusts in the Lord, they say. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. Yet you brought me out of the womb. You made me trust in you, even at my mother's breast. Like from birth, I was cast on you. From my mother's womb, you have been my God. Do not be far from me, for trouble is near and there is no one to help. Many bulls surround me, strong bulls of Bashan encircle me, roaring lions that tear their prey open, their mouths wide against me. I am poured out like water, and all of my bones out of joint. Like my heart has turned to wax, it is melted within me. My mouth is dried up like a potsherd. My tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You lay me in the dust of death. Dogs surround me, a pack of villains encircle me. They pierce my hands and feet. All my bones, they're on display. People stare and gloat over me. They divide my clothes among them and cast lots for my garment. But you, Lord, do not be far from me. Like you are my strength. Come quickly to help me. Deliver me from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dogs. Rescue me from the mouth of the lion. Save me from the horns of the wild oxen. I will declare your name to my people. In the assembly I will praise you. You who fear the Lord, praise him. Like all you descendants of Jacob, honor him, revere him, all you descendants of Israel, for he has not despised or scorned the suffering of the afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from him, but has listened to his cry for help. From you comes the theme of my praise to the great assembly. Before those who fear you, I will fulfill my vows. The poor will eat and be satisfied. Those who seek the Lord will praise him. May your hearts live forever. All the ends of the earth will remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations will bow down before him. For dominion belongs to the Lord, and he rules over the nations. All the rich of the earth will feast and worship. All who go down to the dust will kneel before him. Those who cannot keep themselves alive. Posterity will serve him. Future generations will be told about the Lord. They will proclaim his righteousness, declaring to a people yet unborn, he has done it. Like the way that this psalm starts out, this phrase, like, why have you forsaken me? It is so honest. And maybe it sounds familiar because of the person who quoted it in Matthew 27:46. Like when Jesus, he was dying on the cross, suffering for our sake, he cried these same words out. Like even Jesus, in his moments of suffering, he used the Psalms to express his pain as well as his hope. Like even though the psalmist begins by asking why God has abandoned him, it becomes more hopeful. In these two Psalms alone, we can see that doubts and questions, they take on many different forms. In Psalm 88, the psalmist, he seems to blame God for their painful situation, and their cries to God are dark and hopeless. But in Psalm 22, while the psalmist is still feeling abandoned, there is hope. Like despite their pain, they still trust in God's faithfulness. And isn't it reassuring that our journeys with God, like even our questions and doubts, they don't all have to follow the specific formula? Like sometimes we doubt or question God because we're in pain, or sometimes it's because we just need to vent or think and work things out, or sometimes it's because we're asking hard questions and really trying to find answers. Now, I don't know what doubts or questions you have now or will have in the future, but I hope you remember this. Like the psalmist, like everyone who has ever followed God, and even like Jesus, you are not alone. You're not alone in your questions, doubts, pain, or frustration. Like when we think we're alone in our doubts and questions, it's really easy to lose hope. Like it's so easy to lose hope. But when we understand that we're not alone, and that having doubts and questions doesn't disqualify us from following Jesus, we can discover how to move forward. Like having doubts and questions, it doesn't mean you don't have faith. Asking questions like why is part of how God created us. But if we ever want to move past our questions and to say, and yet to our doubts, like to move forward from them, then we, like the psalmist, we need to start by admitting that they exist. Like remember those situations we looked at in the beginning of our conversation? Like there are so many everyday situations that could cause us to question or doubt God, I think. Like when you ask for God's help on a big test or important challenge, but you still fail, you might wonder why God didn't come through for you. Or when you ask God to make your crush fall in love with you, but they never do, like you might wonder if God is really listening to all your prayers. And when your family experiences a crisis that God doesn't fix, you might wonder if God really is as good or as kind as they say. Or when you don't get that college acceptance letter or the scholarship that you prayed for, you might ask if God really will take care of you or if you're on your own. Like when you're in a dangerous situation and God doesn't rescue you, or you mess up big and you end up hurting people, or you're overwhelmed by something tragic happening in the world, you might think like, all right, either God isn't the all-powerful miracle worker that I thought he was, or God just doesn't care. Now, I don't know how doubts or questions will show up in your life, but I can say that they probably will. And when they do, I hope that you'll remember this. You're not alone in your questions. You're not alone because you're not the only one who has ever had doubts or questions, that's for sure. And you're not alone because in the midst of everything, God remains faithful to you. Like God never leaves your side. And when you know that you're not alone, you can begin to find hope in the midst of even your biggest questions and doubts. And so I'll say it again, you are not alone in your questions.